My name is Amina. Welcome to this video. Today I want to talk about something that is relevant no matter where you are, who you are, what you do. It is the sense of home. And I want to talk about it through the lens of how I made New York City feel like home. Granted, I've only been here for just a bit over 2 months, but the way I felt in the beginning, end of January coming here versus how I feel now, are worlds apart. So I want to talk to you about my process of coming into the city and creating a home here, creating a sense of belonging and grounding in this insanely beautiful yet sometimes cold city like New York. I want to start by mentioning that I met a friend that I knew from back when I lived in Tbilisi, Georgia for high school. She's from Belarus. Now she's doing an exchange in Louisiana. She happened to be in New York. We met. It was one of the most random yet most beautiful experiences to see somebody from what seemed like a past life here now. She asked me a question. She said, "You've lived in several cities throughout your life. How do all of them feel like home to you, or is that feeling something that fluctuates and only lives with you whilst you're still in that city, and then when you move it kind of goes away? Or do you have like one city base that you consider home?" And I really pondered on that question because every single city that I've lived in does feel like home because of certain practices that I managed to establish there. So today I want to focus on specifically New York. I came to New York terrified because I came pretty much alone. I mean, yeah, I have to acknowledge the privilege of coming here on a university program, having a community, not having to worry about paying the rent, or I have a stipend from my university. I don't have to worry about being here on a visa and not having a job or not being able to sustain myself, right? So these are like privileges that I acknowledge, and I realize that there are people who probably have this experience very, very differently than me. But I'm just gonna talk about psychological feelings that I had when I moved here. I came here knowing like 4 other people from like back in Abu Dhabi where I studied, and we weren't friends, right? So I just knew them, but we didn't hang out or anything. So for the first couple of weeks or maybe even a month, I interacted with very few people. So from Amina, the anxious and really scared person who came into this room and cried the first day she was here, to me right now literally being so grateful and happy to be here, there was obviously a process. So today I want to just like share some of the things that I have realized through my experience being here that maybe might help you wherever you are in the world and wherever you're planning to move or have moved recently. First, I prepared to move to New York, right? So I had a Notion page where I jotted down all the coffee shops that I want to find and go to around my area, all the parks, all the other cool things that I'm gonna check out, bookstores and stuff like that. And then I came here, and most of the things weren't as useful as I thought they would be. So yeah, it was cool to have something to start off with, but it didn't prove as precise as I wanted it to. So I had to kind of start all over, right? So you're not really gonna know how you feel until you come to the city and until you come to a space where you're gonna live and actually experience these things firsthand. For me, the important sense of belonging and home that was present in most of the places that I've lived in was crafted by a coffee shop. I used to have a coffee shop in every city that I've lived in, where I would feel truly like home, where I would spend my meetings mornings, where I would chat with friends, where I would at some point befriend the baristas and really feel like they know me and I know them, and we can joke around and I can feel very at ease. Here in New York, the situation was very different. I quickly realized that the abundance of coffee shops and the culture of coffee shops is different than any other place that I've lived in, and I couldn't have that one spot where I would feel super at ease and go to every day. And that allowed me to understand and reflect over why coffee shops mattered so much for me. Why was I not comfortable with my space? And I encourage you to do the same. If you have one practice that you think is not going to be translatable into another place of living that you're planning to move to, then perhaps it would be worth to take a moment and reflect over why that practice is important. What are you trying to avoid? For me, it was trying to avoid being alone with myself. So being surrounded by dozens of people that I didn't know was more comfortable to me than being alone in my space and curating a space where I felt great. That was a lesson learned. But another thing was that my routine was going to coffee shops, right? So that was the familiarity of that really mattered. And hence, what everyone needs, I guess, when they move to any place is establishing a sense of routine. But my experience in New York taught me that your routine needs to be adaptable enough so that you don't crumble when you go to a place that cannot accommodate it 100% accuracy. For me, that meant switching up the going to coffee shops, the same coffee shop, to trying out a lot of them, and then figuring out maybe a couple that I liked and that I would go to just sometimes, and then obviously B, understanding my space and trying to make that work. Another thing was going to the gym, right? So if that is part of your routine, but you find yourself in a new city where the gym is far away or it's too expensive, maybe look for alternatives like going out on runs, or maybe trying out group classes. I got like a class pass trial, and I did that for a little bit to see what I like, and it was quite interesting. It was a different experience. So I would encourage that, and exploring it as an avenue, taking it as an avenue of exploration to see what other things could be a part of our routine. Another thing for me was taking walks. I really enjoyed walking to my classes because that allowed me to explore the city just a little bit more, but also just taking time on a Saturday or on a Sunday, if you have the time, to just walk around, and instead of taking a public transportation, or instead of taking the subway, taking the bus to see things, right? So to be above ground. And that would allow you to, explore a little bit more, see what places of New York, right, or other city that you like. What places would you go to? Always write down notes about the coffee shops that you see, restaurants that you want to check out, bars that you want to try. If you have Google Maps, then put pins and save them. That would be really cool. I don't have Google Maps because I don't know why my phone doesn't allow me to download it. But if you do, that would be a great tool to have that like stored somewhere. Another thing is truly understanding how you can craft the space that you are going to live in to be the most comfortable for you and the most pleasant for you. For me, that routine involved getting flowers. Every other week, I get myself flowers. Sometimes I arrange them in like a bouquet. Sometimes I put like 2 vases of 2 bouquets of flowers. But I like that practice because I like to go into the store, pick my choice of flowers, and then go back home, trim their ends, put them in vases, and then continuously maybe take care of them, trim their ends, switch out the water. That's a really, really important practice for me. For you, that might be, I don't know, getting a candle and burning it sometimes, or having an incense burner, or getting a plant, not just flowers, but like a plant. I cannot do that just because I am going to move out, so it would be very difficult for me to see who I can, like, I don't want to just throw out a plant out, right? So it would be very difficult for me to make sure that it lives in a space where it can grow further. And I would also say that creating that space is also understanding what your morning routine, for example, might look like, or what your night routine looks like. For me, that is, every morning I wake up, I draw the curtains, I prepare my oatmeal every morning before class, and I really love that. That gives me a sense of grounding for my day. That gives me a sense of a routine that I have to follow. I also encourage you to find a park, some green space if you can, or a bench, or somewhere where you like to sit and just people watch, interact with nature. So listen to the sound of the wind rustling through leaves, or birds chirping. And that brings me to C, the third point. I like to watch squirrels and dogs. My two favorite things. I love Madison Square Park. I sometimes sit there and watch squirrels enjoy their day. I I've been loving squirrels in New York City. They're very cute. They really put me in this like joyous mood, and dogs have always been part of what makes me happy. So I love to like just dog watch, basically watch every single dog pass by whilst I read or just enjoy my coffee. Last point that I want to mention is New York City is the city where if you feel lonely, you really, really feel lonely. You know what I mean? I heard in Margot Lee's podcast, she said something that her boyfriend, I guess, told her, that New York City is a true representation of how you feel. So it's like a reciprocal relationship. So if you feel happy, New York City is going to amplify that happiness, that feeling. But if you feel sad and lonely, you better brace yourself. And I completely agree with that statement. And I know this is going to be very abstract, but I would really encourage you to try and reflect over your mindset in this particular space, because when I came to New York, I was in a very different mindset than I am right now. I was scared and anxious, and I felt like an imposter. And I'm not saying those are not valid feelings. Of course they are, and of course it's okay to feel them. And I would just say that taking just a step back and being present in the moment and noticing little moments around you can be so much more rewarding than listening to the little voice in your head being your worst enemy. So really soak up the little moments and enjoy being on your own sometimes, because sometimes those are the moments where you really get to know yourself better, and you really get to experience sometimes really beautiful things, like some of the things that you'll see throughout the video that I'm showing within this week that I've gone through. So if you're planning to move to another city, or if you've just moved, I really hope this video can give you a little bit of an insight into my own experience, and maybe you can extrapolate some practices from it that you can introduce into your life, and maybe the mindset that you can apply to this new change in your life, because change is frightening, but there's always a but. it can also be an opportunity to truly learn more about yourself and have a completely different experience than the one you thought you would have. I was sitting as usual before my Thursday class at Joan Juice, just having my afternoon snack, and just doing some work for my next assignment, nothing biggie. And then a woman, like an elderly woman, walks up to me, and like I mean not to me, but to the seat, because I was sitting outside. And she just sits down, and she has like her dog, and she's like, "Oh, I just need to like rest, because I can't like walk for a long time." I was like, yeah, sure. And then she kind of like asks me where I'm from, and we have a conversation. She tells me she's an artist, and I kind of like asked her like, "Oh, how long have you been living in New York?" She told me this story that she came here on vacation with her husband, and like back a long time ago, and that she fell in love with the city and just knew that she had to live here. And then she said something that I like cannot believe, though, this week, that I'm gathering my own thoughts over how I made New York feel like home. And can you belong in such a city where everybody claims not citizenship, but claims ownership of this over this space? Can you do the same thing? She said, "New York is the greatest love of my life." And I don't know. I know that, you know, I believe there are other people who might say the same thing about other cities, or who might say the same thing about New York, but it really stuck with me because she said that it's just the timing of it all, you know, the perfect timing of it all. Like, it was just a very cute interaction, and I've been thinking a lot, having a lot of thoughts about New York this week, and here we are answering them without even thinking that you're gonna get these answers and in these ways. So yeah.